round or during. And that's what I'm urging you to do here, is to think about the disad strategically prior to the round, right? Tailor the links, have separate pieces of paper that you could put in the shell for this variety of case, or this variety of case, or for this specific link scenario, right? And if you have to, take 15 seconds during prep to hand write a link argument, and not too long, obviously, but something to put at the bottom of that piece of evidence, right? Like, if our link evidence says constructive engagement will cause the Republicans to lose face, well, I mean, sure, and I guess they're going to concede that they're constructive engagement so that they can meet the T from earlier, but why not have a specific link on why this variety of constructive engagement, right? Even if it's analytical, it's something that they may or may not just drop because you didn't read a card for it, so it's an argument that is a win condition for you now. It's conceded, ostensibly. Or at best, right, like they're off their block at least because they have to answer that case-specific link, right? You may or may not always have a card for every case, but that doesn't mean that you can't make case-specific link arguments. The other thing is you need to be ready prior to the round to tailor your disad decisions to the structure of the case. Big stick affirmatives require big stick disads, and smaller cases generally have decent solvency, so you need to concentrate on your internal links. Why run a politics disad that ends in nuclear war against a case that may claim to solve for a small community of people? Do you really need a nuclear war to outweigh a small impact? No. Run the disad that you have that has better links. And by links, I mean internal links, right? Like, the saliency of the internal link scenario should mirror the saliency of the solvency on the affirmative. And I think that you'll find that most affirmatives that claim massive impacts, like red spread or AIDS spread or nuclear war or etc., are probably not going to have the best solvency scenarios. So at least you're not behind in the probability debate to come out with my politics disad that ends in Iran strike, which ends in Holocaust in the Middle East. Well, I mean like nuclear war, right? Yeah. Another one? Any questions about strategically thinking about disads? The counterplan. I think the counterplan is very important when it comes to strategy. Because, yeah, go ahead.
Actually, about disads, do you think that there are any specific types of disads that are generally mishandled by affirmative debaters in our community that we might want to run more often?
I mean, all disads are mishandled by affirmative debaters in our community because, like, I really think that what it comes down to is people are used to answering certain types of arguments, right? Like, I don't know, we had a spending disad that was really a politics disad couched in spending, right? About the fiscal discipline type of an argument, which is really kind of a politics argument. And so people would stand up and say, oh, it's not unique, we spend money all the time, I don't spend that much money, etc. But they weren't ready for the 1 in R, which said, that's not my point, you didn't listen. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that people will mishandle anything they haven't heard before, unless they're good, right? And at which point, then no, they never mishandle disads. Good debaters don't mishandle disads. But, you can catch people off guard with a disad that they just haven't heard before. And that's why I urge you to tailor your disads, right? Like, if you just run in with this strat against every case, then every case is ready to answer that disad. But if you tailor the disad, and I'm not saying you have to dramatically alter the structure of the disad for every round. I'm just saying that you need to add a couple of links, pick the right disad for that round, even if it's not your favorite, or even if it's not the best disad that you have in your box, right? It needs to strategically make sense, if that fits. So the counterplan is significant because it completely alters the entire decision calculus for the round. Because it's no longer a plan v squo world in the debate, it's a plan v counterplan world. So this could very well be the most strategically significant decision that you make in a round. The decision of whether or not to counterplan, and if you are going to counterplan, what type of counterplan to run. So a few words on when I think you should counterplan. The first thing I would say is to counterplan when you mean it, and only when you mean it. I don't think there's time for dispo in LD. I don't think that there's really time for you to kick a counterplan in the 1NR and still win the debate.
What about on the theory level?
Like, that, and that's the problem, in my opinion, is that, like, we just don't have the time to engage that theory debate.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, if you're just going to, if you're kicking the counterplan to go for T or a spec argument or something like that.
Oh, see, I don't see that as, okay, I don't see that as kicking.
Okay.
Like, if you're going to go suicide T, I don't think you're kicking the counterplan. That's still your advocacy for the round. You just don't spend a whole lot of time advocating.
So answer all their theory on the counterplan.
Yeah.
Going to T.
Right, like you would, and we're going to talk about kicking safely, right? But like, or I think Nick will in the rebuttals lecture. But like, yeah, you can kick the counterplan, but all I'm saying is that you can't revert back to advocating the status quo, right? You can't just revert back to my disad outweighs the case, you know, and that's the, you know. So you should vote for the squo. I think that once you introduce a counterplan, now, yeah, there are theoretical justifications for dispositional or conditional counterplans. And that's a debate that we could all have in our spare time. But I just don't think it's a debate that we could settle in the 6 minutes of the 1NR and the 3 minutes of the 2AR. Even assuming we started that debate in the 1AR, it just doesn't make any sense to me without like all of the constructives that seed and NDT have. I just don't think that's a debate that we should worry about. So my point is counterplan when you mean it, when you're gonna go for it, when it matters, when it gets you something. Counterplan when the counterplan is offensive. Which gives us a couple of rules. I think that you counterplan when the AF is just tiny. And I think that that's a good test on significance. The significance T has never been the best T in the world because nobody's bothered defining that word quantitatively, right? And the minor repair didn't really add a whole lot to that topicality in my opinion because it's still just as vague. So one of the best ways for a negative debater to test whether or not the affirmative is big enough quantitatively is can I just counterplan it and get rid of it? Because if I can agent counterplan and give money with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, then maybe you should have picked a bigger AF that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation can't handle on their own. Or if I can counterplan and the African Union could handle your case, then maybe you should have picked something that was a little bit bigger that only the United States federal government could do, right? I think that that's a good test. So agent counterplans, as well as I think some consult counterplans, are a good check against teeny tiny little cases. Go ahead.
Are you recommending like running that T with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, yeah. Let them make the response that your T is infinitely regressive, and not just because we're going to make up time on it, but also because it's going to show the schism. Like, it makes it easier to go for the T when you're winning the counterplan debate.
Right.
If you need to go for the T. Right? Like if I'm winning the counterplan debate that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation could do this better, then obviously this may not be a significant increase in assistance to the greater horn. Right? Like there are arguments to be made there.